Hi everyone, today I've got the absolutely amazing Laura Dalligan with me. Laura, please could you introduce yourself and share how you were drawn to Avalon?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name's Laura Dalligan, and I've been living here in Avalon for 9 years now. 9 years. That's a proper witchy number to be living here. And it was one of those things where I always came here to visit, but I never expected to live here. And when I left London, it just called me. I thought, I'll just stay there for a few months. 9 years later, here I am. But it is a place that's hard to leave because it's got so much magic, and you get so used to the energy of having the goddess and the god and the land being so sacred that it does really inspire you daily. So it's living in the other world, living here basically. I work as an artist and I'm a tarot reader, and as an artist I'm really inspired by the land here, so it's a really magical place because I really tune into the energy of the land and of the animals of the area when I paint. And I paint sacred drums, and that's something that's really taken off since I've moved here, since I've lived here. And also I run lots of workshops and courses online and in person, so being here has fed and inspired me as much as I hope that I can give something back and share some inspiration as well.
This year, the Goddess Conference is centered around the crone and the archetype of the wise woman. And so my question is, how do you work with the crone in your spiritual practice, and what does the crone archetype mean for you?
Absolutely. I feel like the crone archetype is one of the most neglected archetypes and one of the most important ones to reclaim. My big issue around people's feelings about the crone is it really relates back to the Middle Ages, that they're scared of the woman in the woods. They're scared of she is up to no good, she's stealing children. You know, that kind of vibe is what was really put out in the Middle Ages because it was meant to bring fear into those wise women, and they were persecuted. And when you see those modern depictions, well, not modern anymore, but the last few hundred years depictions of witches, they're always old ladies with hook nose. They're always the loner in the woods. They're always the ones not to be trusted. And I think that has been really damaging for women and for also for men and for our connection with wisdom and with womanhood. And I think working with the crone and reclaiming that energy is so healing and beneficial. Not only do we live in a society that's terrified of age, this is literally terrified of getting old, we also live where it's like we've cut off our own head, we've cut off our wisdom, we've cut off our connection. And I think when you cut out the crone and you cut out respecting the elderly and respecting the wisdom, we keep repeating the same mistakes. We don't get that guidance, we don't get that reassurance. So I think it's so important to reclaim the crone and to respect and love the wisdom of the elderly, of the old women and of the old men. And I think the more we respect that, it's almost like it gives them permission to embody that as well, to embody that ancient wisdom. So for me, it's a real important thing to redefine age and to redefine the crone. I think the word crone comes from an insulting word of carrion, like the birds that are eating all of the scraps of the meat. It was meant to be an insulting term in the Middle Ages, and I feel like I love that people reclaimed it and they're loving the word crone and they're saying, this is me, I'm embodying it, or embodying that time of life. And we're taking what was an insult and what was something that was degradatory to be something that is empowering and loved. But still, sometimes when I do tarot work and I go to events, people say that they didn't expect me to be young, they expected me to be old with and kind of an old lady. And there's this kind of depiction of if you're wise, or if you are into being an oracle or into being a seer, that you are depicted as an old-fashioned crone, and not sometimes in a flattering light. And so there is still much that archetype out there still about people kind of, degrading elderly, degrading the idea of a witch and a seer. So my thoughts about reclaiming the crone and connecting back with that energy. I do a course called Goddess Awakening, and we really work through the different elements. And the crone's my favourite. It's the one we end up at the end of the course. You've done all the other work. You've done all the, embracing the maiden, embracing the mother, the lover, the queen, embracing the warrior, and you get to relax by the fire with the crone. And I just think that is the loveliest thing. And that's how I see the crone. I see it by the winter time of the year. It's obviously November when we're filming this, and when the trees are empty and bare and it's quite barren out there, and you gather the wood and you light the fire and you sit around and you tell stories, and the crone holds all of the stories, so you get to listen to all of the wisdom that she's gathered up over the years. That makes me really, really, really happy, and it's very comforting. It's nice to be able to take off your busy head and just relax and listen to those stories and be looked after by the wisdom of the crone. For me, she will have. I alwawas see her sitting around a fire. Whatever goddess crone you're thinking of, it could be the Cailleach, it could be, Hecate, or was it La Loba, the half wolf woman. I see her by a fire, warming her drum with her, with this beautiful shawl on, just telling tales, and it's something that we could all do with, I think, that experience of listening to ancestors, sitting by the fire, hearing the old stories and reconnecting. I also connect the crone to weaving, and the weaving of stories and the old skills that we've forgotten, and with the fates and with the Norns, the ones that just know. And I think that's possibly why they were so feared, because they knew things. The crone knew things. She had that wisdom. She, maybe with one foot in the other world a little bit more, she just has that wisdom of just knowing things that was maybe scared other people. So I feel like with connecting with the archetype, with the goddess of the crone, you have sometimes that really joyful energy, because I feel like when you've got to that crone age, you don't care anymore. You don't have to try and impress anybody. You don't have to be sexy or intelligent. You can be whoever you want because you've done it all, and you can almost release it and let it all go and return to some kind of playfulness and joy. So you can have that real cheeky, funny, great laughter that really just shakes the table. Or you can have the crone that is fierce because she doesn't care anymore about anyone else's rubbish, and she's ready to kind of, she's on one foot in the other world already, so let's kind of really embody that fierceness. Or she'll be the one that will be wise and tell you the stories and heal your heartbreak and heal your grief. So I think she's an amazing goddess and archetype to connect with, especially when you're in loss and in grief. Because you don't want to hear the clattering of the maiden when you're grieving. You don't want to hear about how everyone's in love. You want to be in that quiet and that stripped backbone time of really honouring that loss that you feel in your life. And she is there to support you through that. So for me, the crone is so important in so many ways. I think in a personal way, to enjoy that fire time, enjoy the ancestral time, that connection, the stories, to sit with her through healing, through grief, through release, but also to work with on a magical level, because the power you can gain from when you strip back to the whiteness of that bone, when you are in those liminal times of the year when it's dark and life seems to be gone from the world, there's so much wisdom to be gained, and there's so much power from going within, and the crone helps you go within and really know yourself. So for me, she's very important for those things. And I think for society, she's very important for this kind of getting over this amnesia that we seem to have about how to connect to the land and how to connect to the ancestors and the stories. I think she's very important for everyone to redefine how we approach the elderly. We don't shut them away and kind of feed them TV, but to listen to them and to bring them back as part of the family and to listen to their stories. I wanted to say it as well, I was just thinking about the crone, and I've talked about all these different aspects, but the idea of the fairy godmother and the blessings of I really connect with the fae, and I connect with the fairy realm, and the idea that we were brought up with our fairy tales, but they all have threads of truth in the fairy tales, and I find the fairy godmother or goddess mother or however you want to say it is a really powerful connection to that crone in that kind and giving and generous nature. So that in all the stories you can make those wishes. Well, you can do that in the real world too. I feel it's a bit like the Norns, a bit like a guiding spirit, but with a fairy god or goddess mother you're able to have that personal relationship that maybe you might not have with your grandparents, or maybe you're not able anymore to talk to them with, but they do have that. I know it's not like Disney where you put a magic wand and everything's better, but there is that sparkle, and you can reignite the magic in your world, and you can have a space to make those wishes with a fairy godmother vibe as well. So I definitely think that's a different aspect of the crone in that fairy way, where you can reinvent or reimagine yourself in a place where you can make those wishes and ask for that kind of that magic in your life. So that's one. I think it's good to talk about that as well, because we talk a lot about the wildness of the crone, but sometimes that gentle, caring nature as well.
The big-hearted, loving,
the big-hearted,
like
and with that sparkle, that real sparkle in the heart. There's an amazing painting by Brian Froud of the fairy, and she's kind of this sparkling old lady with just such warmth and kind and giving, and the archetype of that is something I think that is just wonderful to connect with.
In working with the crone archetype, have you got any specific instances where in all of your years of art and painting and writing that you felt especially empowered and inspired by the crone? And I know it's a personal question, but would you feel like you could share those stories with us?
Absolutely. I think through working through my art and connecting with painting the crone, I really, when I do paint anything, I generally go into a journey with them, whether it be an owl or a goddess. And painting, I've painted the Morrigan in her crone form, and I've painted other goddesses in that more, crone energy, and just the liminal energy of connecting with that, and she's sometimes there, she's sometimes not. She's giving you this fierceness with the winter and the dark, and she's also, when you finish the painting, she's laughing at you. It almost throws you. I think she's kind of trying to throw you out of your view of yourself, your seriousness within yourself, and she's come through, and it's been very, very powerful, because she is a real channel to journeying between the worlds, to journeying beyond. She can shapeshift, she can change. She has that lightness and that luminosity even, that isn't fixed here. So I think working with the crone really helps to loosen up our own threads about how we see in our lives. And I've approached the crone I don't see the Norns, particularly the Norse fate, as crones, but because they are so old and ancient and weaving fate, I do see them as embodying that energy and going towards them, to approach them, to not to ask for anything, but to kind of get guidance on how to shift through your life, how to work through your life. I think that's been, and also, when you journey to some goddesses, they give you these lovely messages. Often when you journey to a crone, they'll just smack you with something. They'll just either knock you over or cover you in paint and go, there you go, off you go, or put you on the fire. They've got that proper, powerful, come here, your grandma's telling you off, she's pulling you by your ear, she's sorting you out, kind of no-nonsense way of healing. So I've found her very liminal and powerful, especially with the idea of weaving your own fate and weaving your own destiny. But also, very much so with, as mentioned, about dealing with grief and helping understanding that process as well. I found working with the crone so helpful. And again, that's not something that is maybe spoken about so much, that you can connect with the energy of the crone, because grief is not spoken about enough, to deal with loss and to not just put a plaster on it and get on, but really go to the bone and heal and release and allow yourself to feel all the things you feel when you're going through those processes.
Do you find that there's specific places and spaces where you can connect most especially with the crone on the land? And how does the crone speak to you specifically in Avalon?
Yeah, I was just thinking of like the land, and it's definitely time of years as well. Like I think you can, again, like the autumn, the winter is an easier time, but I think it's in those liminal places like around the hawthorn trees that you see around here, and the stark trees that stick out, in the field. I also feel with some of the springs as well. So the White Spring, I think, is also a really powerful place. I do find it a very masculine place in a good way. I definitely see it as a portal to to the lower world, under the tour, but in that way that portal to the lower world, I find it a really powerful place, because you go into that darkness and you connect with the crone, and actually getting into the deep pool in the White Spring, in that absolute blackness, when you're absolutely freezing and you take your clothes off and you're just in that kind of dark womb of the dark goddess. That's a really powerful and chilly way of connecting with the crone. I'm trying to think of any specific places. I actually feel like walking along the levels as well, because when you walk along the Somerset levels, you become really and just that's not far from Glastonbury, and it's also where the ancestors lived, which I really love, that you've got the lake villages that were out there, so you have a connection to those wise ones that lived here before, so that's a really nice place to go to connect to the land and to the spirits and to those who have been here and the homes that were here before we came. And also, you're really dealing with nature. I think when you're dealing with finding skulls, or finding this, not human skulls, animal skulls usually, but when you're dealing with those kind of really real aspects of nature, sometimes not the pretty aspects of nature, I think when you're in that space, that's a really powerful way of connecting with the crone. So going out for those walks in the wild places, and maybe going off the track, if it's safe for you to do so, obviously, but going off the track and opening yourself up to the wild and to the less pretty, less pristine places, I think that's always a wonderful place to go and connect with the crone.
Nora, on behalf of everyone that listens and watches, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your words with us.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you at the conference this year.
Thank you. Bye.